So most of us have been inundated with the message that protein is everything. And protein is important, don't get me wrong. But today I want to talk about something far less glamorous, maybe far less sexy, something that doesn't get the spotlight, something that probably doesn't sell as easily, but has profound effects on your gut, your brain, your metabolism, your anxiety, your immune system, your energy, and even your ability to lose weight. And that is fiber. Fiber isn't sexy, but fiber is foundational. So today we're going to talk about how fiber actually works in your body, why it's especially important for mental health and cognition, how much you actually need, and how to actually fit this into real life without blowing up your digestion or your sanity. Welcome to the Wellness That Fits podcast, where we help busy moms eat well, restore energy, and clear brain fog without sacrificing family time or your sanity. I'm Cassie Groeschl, registered dietitian and mom of 3. I believe wellness should fit your real life, not the other way around. If you're tired of complicated wellness trends and want simple, sustainable strategies for meal prep, holistic nutrition, and time-saving routines, you're in the right place. Let's jump in. All right, guys, picture this. It's 6:30 a.m. You've already been awake for about an hour because somebody needed you. Your coffee's maybe reheated for the third time. Your brain feels foggy. Your body feels heavy. And somehow you're already behind. I don't know how this happens. It seems like you're doing everything right. You've cut gluten, you've cut dairy, you've tried all the diets. You've tried paleo, keto, Whole30. You've eliminated sugar, seed oils, processed foods, anything that a doctor, practitioner, or a wellness influencer warned you about. Your diet is clean, it's disciplined, and it's also probably painfully small. You rotate the same safe foods because experimenting feels risky. Because the last time you tried something new, your digestion fired up or flared up, or your anxiety spiked, or your energy completely crashed. And yet, you still don't feel like yourself. You're anxious for no clear reason, or it pops up when you least expect it, and that scares you. You're exhausted by mid-afternoon. Your digestion is unpredictable. Your brain feels like it's constantly buffering. That's that brain fog. And despite how restrictive you've been with your diet, your body is still holding on to weight. Maybe it's the midsection, maybe it's your thighs, but your body won't seem to let go of the weight, though you're doing everything right. So you start to wonder, why does this feel so hard? Why do I feel trapped by this protocol that was supposed to heal me? Why am I only seeing tiny benefits when I've already given up so much? And maybe the most frustrating question of all, what am I missing? So most of us have been inundated with the message that protein is everything. And protein is important, don't get me wrong. But today I want to talk about something far less glamorous, maybe far less sexy, something that doesn't get the spotlight, something that probably doesn't sell as easily, but has profound effects on your gut, your brain, your metabolism, your anxiety, your immune system, your energy, and even your ability to lose weight. And that is fiber. Fiber isn't sexy, but fiber is foundational. So today we're going to talk about how fiber actually works in your body, why it's especially important for mental health and cognition, how much you actually need, and how to actually fit this into real life without blowing up your digestion or your sanity. All right, so here's the key thing that many people don't realize. Fiber doesn't necessarily feed you, it feeds your gut bacteria. So plant fibers, especially from a wide variety and wide range of plants, they reach your colon undigested. Once there, your gut microbes, so just the different microbes and microbial diversity in your gut, so bacteria, whatever it might be, your gut microbes ferment them and produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. So if you've heard of SCFAs, the short-chain fatty acids, probably one of or three of the most studied ones would be butyrate, acetate, and propionate. And these short-chain fatty acids are absolutely powerful. And oftentimes they're studied alone, but they do work together in your gut and in your body to do different things. So, like I said, they're powerful. They improve insulin sensitivity and metabolic health. They reduce inflammation. They strengthen your gut lining and prevent leaky gut. I'll talk more about that later. They support immune regulation. They influence gene expression. And most relevant for today's topic, at least, they support brain health. Now, I had mentioned those three: butyrate, acetate, and propionate. So butyrate in particular helps maintain the integrity of the gut-brain axis. And so it reduces neuroinflammation and supports neurotransmitter balance. And something I also wanted to mention, because this has to do with both gut but also brain health. So what butyrate does is it also helps increase the expression of tight junction proteins, which are the proteins that are vital for decreasing gut permeability, or a simpler way to put it, they help prevent leaky gut. Now, many of you have heard of leaky gut. It's basically where these tight junction proteins, they get weak, and therefore gut permeability, the ability of things to pass through this wall that's supposed to be only permeable to certain things. So this tight junction proteins get weak and gut permeability increases, or it gets leaky, and allows things from your gut to cross that barrier into places they really shouldn't be, right? Like, so it's passing from your gut into your blood. Your immune system, which basically sits right at like that wall between the cells and your blood stream, right? So it kind of like your immune system hangs out right there, and that gets activated when things start to come through because you have a leaky gut. Your immune system gets activated, and that is what is promoting inflammation. So you can imagine too much leaky gut or too many holes in this wall can create way too much inflammation, and constant poking holes in this wall and throughout the whole gut in multiple different places. This can create chronic inflammation. So I wanted to kind of piece those two things together, though mostly today we are going to be talking about brain health. All right, so when fiber is low, those short chain fatty acids, the production of those drops. And so that can look like, in simple terms, it can look like brain fog, it can look like low mood or just irritability, heightened anxiety, fatigue, exhaustion, increased cravings, and a metabolism that just feels stuck. Again, it's like no matter what you do, you can't seem to kickstart your metabolism. So some of the strongest human data that we have comes from large observational and interventional studies. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about the American Gut Project, because this is basically a project where they have access to the microbiomes of a lot of different people. And so studies from that project show us that greater plant diversity, meaning dietary, so the more diversity we have in the foods, the plant foods that we eat, it equals greater gut microbial diversity. So the more diverse our diet is in plant foods, the more diverse our gut microbial or our gut microbes are. And so why this is important is because greater microbial diversity is associated with lower rates of anxiety and depression, reduced risk of heart disease and cancer, which are some of our top killers in the US, right? Heart disease and cancer, better metabolic health overall. So this isn't just one superfood. It's about variety. And it's honestly always been about variety. But from that project, what they found is that people who ate 30 or more different plant types a week had microbes that were more diverse than those of people who ate only 10 plant types or less per week. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're going through your head and you're thinking, what did I have in my meals this week? You know, did I have the tomato, the romaine, the cucumbers, carrots? Oh my gosh, I've had maybe 7 veggies. And those are the veggies that show up on my grocery list every single week, right? So first of all, I want to just say you're not abnormal. This is very normal in our culture and in the United States in general, in the westernized diet, to not have as much plant diversity. If you do, if you're thinking about, oh my gosh, I had bok choy this week and radishes and beets and all these things, And, next week it's going to look totally different. That's wonderful. That's kind of the goal we're trying to get at, is increasing the diversity of the plants that we're eating. All right. So higher microbiome diversity generally promotes resilience and lower disease risk, while low diversity, so not very many varieties of microbes in your gut, or also dysbiosis, which is a term for an imbalance of the gut microbes, like, the bad bacteria are overpowering the good bacteria. That would be like dysbiosis. So when you have lower diversity or dysbiosis in the gut, it's associated with chronic conditions like obesity, diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease or IBD, allergies, anxiety, and even certain cancers. And it impacts metabolism, immunity, and neurological health. So it's crazy how much the diversity of our microbiomes can affect our general overall health and our risk of disease. When your diet becomes extremely restricted, even if it's clean, right, like quote unquote clean, your microbiome can become less diverse, and that's a problem. A less diverse microbiome is more fragile, more reactive, and less resilient to stress, which means your body feels stressed, even when you're doing everything, quote unquote, right. So, what can we do? How much fiber do we need? Let's talk about this part. According to established nutrition guidelines, women ages 31 to 50 typically need about at least 25 grams of fiber per day. Men in the same age range, so 31 to 50, need at least 31 grams per day, so just a little bit more. And guess what, guys? The majority of US adults, so they break it down for men and women, over 90% of women and 97% of men fail to meet the recommended daily fiber intake, with only about 7% of the population meeting guidelines. And so when you actually think about this, a helpful breakdown, maybe like a mental framework to keep in the back of your head, would be, how much fiber do I need about at each meal? And so if you take, 25 divided by about 3 meals, I would, it's going to be anywhere from like 7 to 10 grams of fiber per meal. 10 might be a little bit on the higher side, but I think as a general rule, it's just an easy number to remember. And then I would say it's a good idea to aim to have a few grams of fiber in your snacks, like in a snack that you have throughout the day, because it can help cover and close any gaps that you might have from maybe not eating enough fiber at breakfast or not at lunch or dinner or so on. And so, okay, let's make this practical. I'm going to give you an example of a common Western diet and then what it would look like what a meal or a day would look like that would have enough fiber in it. Okay, so let's start with a common Western diet that seems, healthy. It's just might be missing some fiber. So let's say for breakfast, you start out with some Greek yogurt and a banana. Okay, that's like 3 grams of fiber and it's all coming from the banana. Let's say for lunch, you are just hitting your protein goals and you have a high protein chicken salad. You're hitting 30 grams of protein and you think you're doing amazing. And you have like 2 cups of romaine lettuce. Yes, I'm hitting my leafy greens. I'm doing amazing. Guess what? That fiber is at probably 2 grams because there's about 2 grams of fiber in 2 cups of romaine lettuce. And so unless you have a whole bunch of other veggies in that salad, you're very, very far below the fiber requirements that you need. All right, let's move on to dinner. Let's say you're super busy, you get done with work, and let's say you order takeout and you are concerned about protein, right? Because protein's that hot topic. So, and again, it is important to get protein. I don't want to go past that. I just want to say fiber is something that should be at the forefront of your mind as well. And so let's say you grab a chicken stir fry, so it's got 25 grams of protein, and then it has a little bit of broccoli and onions and then some white rice or something. So this is probably going to be about 5 grams of fiber. And if you choose brown rice over white rice, you might increase that by a few grams, like maybe 2 or 3 grams. And so we got about 5 grams-ish, maybe a little bit more for dinner. We have about 2-3 grams for lunch. We have about 3 grams for breakfast. If you're counting in your head with me, this is about 10 to 15 grams of fiber total. 10 to 15 grams total. Now, and if you'll remember, the recommendations were 25 for women for the day. So now let's compare this to a fiber-rich meal without being too extreme, right? So let's start with breakfast. Remember my rule of about 8 to 10 grams of fiber per meal, okay? So breakfast, let's say we start with oatmeal topped with chia seeds, berries, ground flax. So all of those things that I said right there, the oats, the chia seeds, the berries, any type of fruits and veggies, right? And ground flaxseed, those all are great sources of fiber, okay? Or let's say you do a plant protein powder smoothie and you're adding frozen berries to it. If you haven't listened already to my episode on how important berries are for cognitive function, go back and find that one because we should be adding berries almost daily or every other day at least to our diet. So plant protein powder smoothie with frozen berries, spinach or any other leafy green, and hemp seeds. Everything I just said there has fiber in it. And that's going to help you get to that 10 grams of fiber for breakfast. Okay, so let's move on to lunch. How do we get 10 grams for lunch? Let's say you have a lentil-based soup or you do a grain bowl with lentils, quinoa, roasted veggies, and you drizzle with olive oil. Or you drizzle it with something that has some fiber in it, like a tahini or some sort of nut or seed-based dressing. That could be right around 10 grams of fiber. And honestly, depending on how many lentils you're eating, it could be 15 grams of fiber. Let's move on to dinner. What would give us about 10 grams of fiber? Salmon or some other protein source, right? With roasted sweet potatoes, with a good helping of broccoli and a side of edamame. Mix it all together, put a little chipotle sauce on it or do a teriyaki sauce, whatever it might be. That's going to help us hit that 10 grams of fiber. And here's something important. When you eat a fiber-rich lunch like lentils, you're feeding your gut bacteria for hours. And so when I'm talking about feeding the gut bacteria, and we've talked about these byproducts, what's happening is the bacteria is eating these plant fibers that you're eating, right? That you're eating through your diet. And they are breaking it down or fermenting it into these other products or byproducts, we call it. And those byproducts are something that like the butyrate or the other ones, the short chain fatty acids, that are doing something good in our bodies. And so what's really cool is the beneficial fermentation byproducts are still being produced at dinner time. And the more you feed the good bacteria, the more they replicate. And so let's say you eat a cup of broccoli and you have, a small amount of beneficial bacteria that break down that broccoli. Well, if you keep eating that 1 cup of broccoli over time, you're actually feeding more of the good bacteria that are replicating and reproducing. And when you have more of those bacteria and beneficial microbes that are reproducing, they're producing more of those beneficial byproducts. So it's just an amazing benefit that you can get. And like I had mentioned, studies show that if you eat a fiber-filled lunch, your body is seeing the benefits of those byproducts that are produced even into dinner time. So we want to hit our fiber intake at dinner time as well. But what I love about it is that you're still seeing benefits from your lunch if you have a high fiber lunch, which basically all of this means your nervous system, your metabolism, and brain are still benefiting long after the meal is over. So fiber isn't just about digestion, it's about that ongoing support, especially brain health and brain support. So if you are anxious, chronically exhausted, crashing every afternoon, dealing with digestive issues, or walking around in a fog that just won't seem to lift, or that mom brain maybe, it might not be that you need more restriction, like more diets. It might be that your body is asking for more nourishment, more diversity, more plants, more fiber. And if this resonated with you, please follow me on Instagram at Wellness That Fits for more simple, realistic strategies around gut health and how it connects to your mental health and energy. Also, please, please, please don't hesitate to DM me with your struggles, what resonated with you from this episode, or you can share any ideas you have for future episodes. So, I started this podcast to connect more with you. Yes, you listening right now, who you've made it to the end of the episode. Thank you for listening. So please don't be shy and reach out to me. And in closing, I want to remind you, friend, we have a lot of people we care for in our lives who we have to show up for. And I want you to feel energized, focused, resilient, and confident, and actually be able to show up for your life, feeling like yourself again. And fiber can help you get there. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Wellness That Fits podcast. I hope you walk away with simple, doable steps you can put into practice right away. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world if you subscribed, left a review, or shared it with another busy mom who could use some encouragement. Until next time, friends, keep creating wellness that fits your life.